Welcome back, friends and family. I'm Codiferrous, and today I'm bringing you Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, all main story bosses ranked from easiest to hardest. Kingdom Hearts 2 is one of those rare instances where a sequel in media surpasses the original by every definition. Right off the bat, the gameplay has improved tenfold from the first game, introducing smoother free-flow combos, magic finishers, reaction commands, a wide range of abilities and equipment, and everything else in between. KH2 is one of the greatest action RPGs of all time, and if you haven't had a chance to play it, then you are seriously missing out. Picking up from the events of Chain of Memories, we follow Sora as he travels to new worlds, as well as visiting some old favorites in his quest to bring down Organization 13. The game does a fine job of establishing the threat of the nobodies as the yang to the yin that is the Heartless. The objective and story of the first game was pretty straightforward. Worlds are in trouble from the respective villains who are manipulated by a big evil bad guy, leaving us to defeat all of the villains and save the princesses. In Kingdom Hearts 2, we expand the plot to where an organization has been established with the goal of summoning Kingdom Hearts. A nobody, as I mentioned before, is defined as the other half of a Heartless. When a person succumbs to darkness, they lose their heart and become a Heartless, and their body, aka their shell, is left behind. This empty shell is a nobody. If a person with an exceptionally powerful heart succumbs to darkness, then the nobody that is left behind retains a form similar to their original selves. A group of these exceptional nobodies makes up the top echelon of the organization. So with that said, the goal of Organization 13 is to use Sora to forge Kingdom Hearts through his destruction of the Heartless with Keyblade. Once having access to Kingdom Hearts, the nobodies hope to find their own lost hearts. There's a few complaints about the game in regards to a very slow burn opening with Roxas, a new character introduced, in addition to some rather tedious minigames. But when you get into the real meat of the game, I have nothing but praises to sing. I want to keep this game summary short and sweet, as new players are in for quite the treat should they venture into Kingdom Hearts. Alright, you know how we do it. Before we start this list off, I need to go over a few key points. Firstly, at the staff, shield, and sword choice at the beginning of the game, I chose the sword. If you're not familiar with what this means, essentially I was hard-nerved for the entire game as it didn't have access to the all-essential once more and second chance abilities until far later on. On top of this, I kept up the spirit of my playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 1, in that I very seldomly grinded, which resulted in me being underleveled for a vast majority of my boss fight encounters. In addition to all of this, the footage shown is recorded for my very first playthrough on the highest difficulty, Critical Mode. As is per usual, the following list is comprised wholly of my own personal opinion and is not meant to be taken as unshakable fact. Because some bosses like Pete and the Final Fantasy characters are fought multiple times, this list will be comprised of unique boss battles, meaning that each boss will only be represented one time, and in their most difficult iteration, so you won't be seeing any repeat fights. Additionally, I will not be including the absent silhouettes as I have a different video that covers the data fights, and because the data fights are technically harder iterations of the absent silhouettes, they will not be repeated. And as a final note, I want to add that I do not know all of the boss cheeses. I do not look up, watch videos of, or follow any guides. So please understand that all strategies, combat approaches, and possible cheeses that you see are based entirely off of my own discovery and design. So when I see comments like, "Codiferrous, why didn't you do it this way?" because at the time of recording, I genuinely did not have that knowledge. Now, I wouldn't be doing my job if I did not demand tribute to the channel and request that you subscribe. These videos take a copious amount of time to create, and your support means the world to a growing boy like me. One final time, if you have not played Kingdom Hearts 2.5 Final Remix, I wholeheartedly encourage you to click off of this video and return after you've enjoyed this masterpiece, as there are spoilers ahead. Enough delay, let's jump into things. These first couple entries on the list are going to go quite fast as they are very simplistic boss fights without much for me to talk about, and the first one to kick off this list is the Volcanic Lord and Blizzard Lord. This boss encounter features two overinflated elemental pimp daddies, one of fire and one of ice. They have two moves apiece, and this battle centers entirely on hitting reaction commands to absolutely demolish them. Their first attack will be an elemental blast that has a short range and a large cast delay, easily circumvented by walking. Their second attack will be a bouncing body slam that you will hit the reaction command to have Sora toss the corresponding boss about the arena, therefore stunning them and opening up for a large damage sequence. That's literally it. It's hard to think of a way to die here, but I won't judge if it happens. Hercules is actually easier to fight in this game than he was in the previous one, and that's really saying something because he wasn't too tough even back then. He lost his spinning slash attack as well as his previously annoying godly invincibility slash barrel minigame that you had to play around. Hercules' fight has a bit of a gimmick to it in the form of orbs that you drop every time you get hit. Should you reach 0, then you lose the tournament. The other gimmick is that you must do the fight solo with the ability to use summons by yourself. Naturally, I opted for Stitch as he is the most powerful ally in my humble opinion. Hercules' attacks are identical to the first game, and the strategy to beat him is the same. You attack, you dodge his rebuttal, you attack again. That's it. Pete is battled a number of times in different iterations, but here we are focusing on his first full boss fight in the underworld. The reason being that he boasts 2 phases of ads for you. This fight is deceptively tough just for the sake of the outlandish damage you take from any of Pete's attacks. His bowling ball bomb is quite easy to dodge, as is his temper tantrum stomp. He has another ability where he surrounds himself with a shield to grant a short period of invincibility for himself, but he is usually open to attack as soon as this ends. That's about it. A small move pool, susceptibility to being juggled, and the long-winded animations of his attacks keep Pete in the low echelon. The first boss of the game, Twilight Thorn, is the nobody counterpart of Darkseid. While he has an incredibly shallow and basic move pool, he deals a substantial amount of damage this early on. Provided that you have no abilities or magic, you need to rely on the potions provided to keep yourself topped off. A single hit will easily put you in the danger zone. When it fires off its thorns, use the reversal command to avoid taking a big hit and close the gap to Twilight Thorn's head. Even when you are right close to his head, prioritize your safety over dealing damage, as you cannot afford any hits. The nobodies that are spawned can be largely ignored for the most part, as your combos will hit them for collateral damage more often than not. But all the same, if you're swarmed, then it's game over, so make your best judgment as to when they need to be dispatched. When the boss does his big cinematic attack, spam the reaction command to deal moderate damage and open him up for a combo. There isn't any added layers of complexity outside of this, just stomp the ground and blow that funky horn. Your fight with Axel will be incredibly fast. Either he will kill you in 5 seconds or you'll kill him in 10. Playing as Roxas in the Struggle Tournament, Axel does not challenge you to friendly sport. Rather, he interrupts your tournament for a death match. He has the same challenge as Twilight Thorn in that you have 0 abilities and magic to utilize. He boasts relatively crazy mobility given that you do not have dodge roll, glide, or any other mobility abilities. What makes Axel so hard to face is unpredictable super armor and this weird delay before executing attacks. Pay very close attention and guard when appropriate to temporarily immobilize him. But this is not a foolproof strategy, as Axel can fake out a stumble, baiting you into attacking before he retaliates with super armored combos. Real fun and balanced, right? You are likely to die here a time or two unless you have the luck of Harry Potter and manage to ace him, which brings you to the unfortunate consequence. Each time you die here, you will have to rematch Vivi with every failed attempt, which is an annoying fight on its own. Jump on the Hydra's back! Need I say more? Okay, fine. The Hydra is encountered at Olympus. I actually had to go through the footage to search out his attacks because I honestly didn't know what they were off the top of my head. Given that, wouldn't you know it, I was always on his back. The Hydra attacks quite slowly in an exaggerated fashion, and you need to slap the various faces and hit the correct reaction commands as they appear. This fight has an insane amount of supporting characters, as you will have Phil, Pegasus, Donald, Goofy, and even Meg. That's right, if you run up to Meg at any point in the fight, she will restore your HP, MP, and even some drive meter, making this bout a cakewalk. Oh yeah, and if you somehow manage to die here, King Mickey will appear to put this battle on autopilot. In the recorded footage, I believe that Danny DeVito glitched out his voice lines because I wasn't told once to jump on the Hydra's back. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm taking that personally, Danny. If you also experience this audio glitch, you will know to get on the Hydra when you spot Phil repeatedly jumping. The whole boss fight is essentially a reaction command simulator. Enjoy the win. Shan Yu is an incredibly basic boss and doesn't have much to discuss. He's assisted by his falcon, Hayabusa, which takes the occasional swipe at you. Additionally, there is a gimmick here in that you need to protect the palace gates from being destroyed by Heartless, but this is a negligible aspect. You can clobber Sean Yu in a corner for the most part until he goes for his one dangerous attack, the Dark Spinning Slash. It's called that because he gathers dark energy and then does a spinning slash. You will know this attack is coming when he swathes himself in dark energy and takes the number 2 pose. If you are at a distance, he will joust at you before catapulting himself into the sky. In case things go south, King Mickey is active for this battle to give you that free 1-up, but ultimately you should find success by mashing the smack button. Prison Keeper is a strange boss, to put it mildly. Found upon your first visit in Halloween Town, the Prison Keeper gains different elemental attacks based on which child it ingests. Kinky? While he has a colorful plethora of elemental offensives, he boasts 0 defense and stumbles from nearly everything you do to him. Get in there and just go crazy. Now, I know you're going to have some concerns for your controller's X button, but make like that subscribe button and absolutely smash it. In the final phase of the fight, the Prison Keeper will employ all powers at the same time, similar to a Walmart version of the Queen Valkyrie from God of War. When it launches a large ball at you, you can guard to reflect it back at him. But overall, the final phase should see no change in your strategic approach. Ride that coaster until it crashes, my friend. Storm Rider is a large sentient parade float who makes a large point to jump scare Sora and company on their second visit to the Land of Dragons as they depart the Emperor's throne room. We're still on the Weenie Hut Jr. end of the boss ranking, so understand that this boss is easy. The problem is how elusive he is. The Storm Rider is a flying enemy that you'll need to chase down with these launching tornadoes, throwing yourself into the sky to hopefully land on his back. Once on board, you can attack his party hats to chip down some health. Destroying the party hats will ground Storm Rider, and you can hit his facial horns for free. His big boy attack will comprise of him landing center stage and charging up a special beam cannon. This attack is accented by 2 light screens closing in from both sides. All you need to do is get up close and personal and then dodge at the final hour. It may take a few tries to overcome this boss due to various lightning strikes, but try not to get tilted at the disjointed hitboxes when boarding the boss and remain focused until the end. This gargantuan boss is battled at your second visit to Pride Rock and kicks things off with some triangle spamming goodness as you run around evading attacks and slashing at his legs. Ground Shaker will then fall over and allow you to perform your own version of LASIK surgery. If you weren't doing it already, your highest damaging combo as Lion Sora is the aerial combo that involves you mashing square. After running this a few times, the boss will stand back up and you'll be prompted to spring up onto his back. Here, you will fight the shaman that is seemingly controlling the Ground Shaker. You need to attack while avoiding unpredictable magic attacks. The shaman will occasionally turn invisible and attack you with increasingly dangerous spells. You need to keep your health at above 50% as any one of the attacks can actually one-shot you. After dealing enough damage, you'll be triggered into the reaction command segment once more, but nothing outrageous to be concerned over. Though technically this boss is part of the final Xemnas fight, the Nobody Dragon is its own entity with its own unique fight, so it snags its own spot on the list. It's quite gimmicky, which is the only reason that it requires any bit of effort. Use the BDE cannon on your Pimp and Ride to blow them away, but keep your focus on dodging the incoming projectiles. Don't worry about aiming, as your shots are wide enough to usually find their mark. Dying to this boss is a huge pain in the ass because you'll need to redo the entire sequence. Prioritize your safety over dealing damage, and this shouldn't be too terrible of an encounter. It is at this point where you finally start to see the difference in difficulty between the aforementioned bosses and the ones that are coming up. All bosses prior mentioned are interchangeable and can be bested by X-mashing. The subsequent bosses that we'll be talking about will require at least a little bit of brain power to overcome, and we start with Cerberus. Thankfully, Cerberus is much easier in this game than he is in KH1. His attacks are better paced out, his windows of attack are more crisp, and you can hit for some moderate damage with the reaction command. It also helps that you have Auron present to assist you. Lightning Magic is a decent choice for hitting his faces, and I implore you to use the reaction command when it appears to speed up the process. Otherwise, Dodge Roll will prove to be your friend here in dealing with Cerberus' own arsenal, so hopefully you have invested some time in leveling up your limit form. Occasionally, some boulders will randomly fall from the sky, so pay some mind to that. If all else fails, this is yet another one of those bosses where Mickey has a chance to assist you, so you really shouldn't find too many game over screens here. Hades doesn't quite carry the same flair as he did in the first game, but his dialogue is still top-notch, while his fight provides a fair enough challenge. Just like Cerberus, Hades copy-pasted his moveset from the first game. As a gimmick, Hades will be invincible while flamed up, needing you to utilize Hercules' Aura Sphere, #Lucario, to break him out of the state. Hades will go back to his enraged state when he says, and ignites the floor around him. Being close to him when he does this will slap you for moderate damage and can even kill you if you fail to bail out in time. It doesn't help that he has an obsession with blinking next to you before doing this attack. It will take a little getting used to, but overall, Hades is nothing to lose your own cool over. This is easily my favorite fight in the game. Cyax, or however you say his name, is portrayed as being cool, collected, and direct. Seemingly emotionless, he gets a solid amount of dialogue throughout the story, but it was after his particularly cold encounter with Sora at Hollow Bastion that you just knew this was going to be a battle for the ages. Cyax spends the opening of his showdown lamenting poetry about the moon in a sexually charged fashion. Whilst wooing, his rage meter continually charges up. When it tops out, then something mysterious happens. How shall I put this? He completely loses his shit. Cyax will charge you down with unceasing slam attacks and intermittent axe throws in between. You can bide your time and wait for him to deplete his rage meter, or you can take action that'll put some hair on your chest and grab his weapon, prompting the reaction command to hit him with it and dispel his rage altogether, leaving him open to combos. Be mindful that in his enraged state, he gains access to his ultimate attack, which comprises of a long, chaining stream of slam attacks that leaves no opening on him. And this is where the fight really shines and becomes awesome. It gives you the option of fight versus flight, with both paths being a viable option for victory, with the battlefield and well-delivered one-liners from Cyax only accentuating the tension of the fight. The good news is that Cyax's move pool is limited, so there won't be much to study, but there's no need to overcomplicate a masterpiece. Firstly, the sheer damage output of just about anything in this world on your second visit is astounding, and yes, that goes for the boss fight as well. Before starting this fight, make sure that you have Tron in your party. To do any damage to the boss, Tron must be in tow and also needs to be alive to deal any damage to the MCP. This fight has two threats to be aware of and kicks off with a preliminary boss fight versus Sark to boot. Knock Sark into his comatose state by targeting the appropriate parts of vulnerability before turning your attention to the main event. Begin by destroying the barrier that allows you to access the MCP, aka Master Control Program. Use the delete function when it is accessible through the hole you just created to deplete the MCP's health until Sark decides to take a Phoenix down. It makes the fight much easier to keep Sark on life support, so whenever you see him revive to play Bouncer, knock him back out before returning to wipe your browser history. This fight only ends when you destroy the MCP. This is easier said than done, mind you, as you can die at any moment in this fight from getting potentially one-shot, but at this point, that's to be expected. Luxord has great voice acting and is a very interesting member of the organization. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see too much screen time from Luxord, and I felt that his fight at the end of the game was heavy-handed in its delivery. The same could also be said for Xigbar, but we'll get to that. Luxord is full of more card references than Seto Kaiba, and he has the ego to boot. His fight has a special spin on it that Sora and Luxord have a time mechanic that depletes throughout the battle. Luxord's attacks deplete your time bar more quickly, as do Sora's deplete Luxord's. Periodically, Luxord will challenge you to a game where, depending on the outcome, the loser's time meter takes a large hit. His most troublesome move is the polymorph ability that transforms you into a card. You lose nearly all mobility and become defenseless. Additionally, this burns out the time mechanic that this fight centers around, and unfortunately, running away is all you can do until you turn back to normal. Keep a careful eye on Kaiba Incarnate and utilize your basic memorization skills to stay on top. Eventually, you will trigger his last gamble, where you become imprisoned in an arena of cards. Your commands will cycle between X's and O's, and you need to select the O's when they appear. Messing up a single time will cause you to lose, and you will take damage, followed by Luxord siphoning off a large chunk of your time meter. Proving successful will have the opposite effect and essentially conclude the fight. Just like his partner in crime, Xigbar's fight felt rushed without much anticipation. Just kind of a, hey, you're fighting me now. Another cool character with solid voice acting, Zigbar pops off with the pew pews and has a decent range of attacks that make for an action-filled bout.
Clever little sneak.
Teleporting around while shooting various bursts of shots, it should be obvious that Reflect will serve you quite well here. For his ultimate attack, he will transport you to a lonely little island and yell before shooting off maniacally. Time your reflects and dodges for the initial bursts, but for the final onslaught you'll need to run in a tight circle to avoid getting Festizioed. Encountered on your first visit to Beast's Castle, Shadowstalker and Dark Thorn features a two-phase boss fight that revolves around the environment itself. Shadowstalker is a possessive spirit that kicks off Phase 1 with 4 means of attack. If he possesses the windows at the back of the arena, prepare for pillars of light to be thrown your way. While they have moderate gaps between them for you to dodge through, getting hit by any one of these pillars will deal substantial damage. Choosing to possess the castle columns will entail Shadowstalker utilizing all of the columns to slam the floor. Jump over this attack and punish him accordingly to knock him out into his physical form, and take your turn for some damage. His final object of inhabitants is the chandelier above. While similar to Hades' fire pillar attack from the first game, you cannot outrun this move. It's best avoided by running outside of its effective range, or you could be like me and tank the attack to smack Shadowstalker out of the chandelier. When not possessing an object, he will opt for a Shadow Chomp, where a shade will appear underneath Sora's feet. After a brief delay, Shadowstalker will pop out to engulf you. Time your jump for the last second to successfully avoid this. Dark Thorn is far more imposing than the first phase. As you may have guessed from his Ifrit-inspired appearance, he does less on the possession route and weighs heavier on the in-your-face style of combat. The Step Vault reaction will lend you a large helping hand against this phase, and I recommend that you take advantage of this reaction command at every instance available. Not only is it free damage, but choosing not to use Step Vault will see Dark Thorn using the chandelier for his own Step Vault attack. Important to mention is that dying on Dark Thorn resets the fight and you'll have to fight Shadowstalker once more. If I had to write a Sparks Notes entry for this boss, it'd be something along the lines of too much damage too early in game. The Door Guardian, aka Thresholder, has a shallow move pool, but you need to treat every attack with caution. This early on, even the mob enemies that spawn in tandem with this encounter can deal enough damage to clean you out. I recklessly attacked and kept flinging my ragdoll body at the door to overwhelm it with an all-out assault, and it kinda worked out for me. After doing enough damage to the door, you'll be able to release the spirit inside to do some actual damage to the boss. It can be a hassle to track down, but you need to prioritize attacking the spirit when you are able, as it will repossess the door after a short time. If you need it, King Mickey can provide assistance. You might see the pattern here in that any fight that permits the availability of King Mickey is instantly nerfed in his difficulty. In this rematch, I'm both pleased and disgusted to say that Jafar actually fights you this time around. While he has actual fight mechanics in stark contrast to your encounter with him in the previous game, GD Jafar's fight is 100% American-made, genuine, state-of-the-art ass chippings. Why? Because the nature of its difficulty comes from it being a boss battle centered on aerial combat. On the godforsaken carpet, nonetheless. Lucky us. Kick things off by flying directly into his center of mass and attempt an appendectomy. Deliver enough damage here and he will fall over, where you can then hit the reaction command to take him for a spin. While he's dazed, you're going to proceed to inflict excessive brain trauma until Jafar's memory is jogged enough that he remembers that he is in fact a synthol-juiced being of legend. He has so many horribly annoying attacks. A common one, which I believe is unavoidable, is a paralysis glare that holds Sora hostage momentarily. Sees a large stream of fireballs bombarding your glutes, and he sometimes combines this with his paralysis glare, leaving you completely defenseless. Great boss design! Periodically, Jafar will teleport you to a different realm, with various debris flying your way. Dodge around for a period of time, and you will be promptly teleported back to resume the onslaught. It's tedious as all hell, and rushing this fight will get you killed, make no mistake of that. His weak points are his stomach and his hands, but I tended to keep a focus on his core to stay on the track of dealing additional head trauma. Keep your panties unbunched, however, and you'll subjugate him to bondage in no time. The hostile program spends most of the fight running away from you, giving you a moving punching bag for the first half of the fight. It blasts these strange projectiles that have glitchy pathing, making them quite simple to circumvent. More dangerous is the blast barrage, but a well-timed guard should dispense with this. Collecting clusters will allow you to execute a freeze command to stop the boss and make like Adam Sandler and shart in his face. Near the end, the anal leakage levers get set to max as the boss continuously moves and blasts away. It also introduces its laser strobe onslaught. Dodge timing and blocking is everything here, so don't go all out like I did. Stick to it and keep your cool, because this boss's greatest weapon is causing you to lose your patience and go in like a tool. Various combinations of the Final Fantasy characters are battled throughout the Underworld tournaments, but we are going to focus on the 1v4 fight in the Hades Paradox Cup. The Hades Paradox Cup is recommended to be level 99, so I went out into the wilds and grinded it out. I come back to one of the most anticipated fights, and I annihilated them. This fight was surprisingly simple. I had all AoE abilities equipped and went pedal to the metal, knocking out Tifa and Yuffie as collateral by accident. I didn't even bother tapping into the drive forms here, and only a single cure was needed. They boast all the attacks that you've seen before, but they start out the fight in their empowered states. If they had more health, this battle would be absolutely incredible, but seeing how fast they melt from a combo or two is a bit saddening. Cloud will be the most meddlesome to deal with, especially when he executes his Omni Slash, but mindless X smashing will prove to be more effective than it should be. I would recommend taking out the characters in order of health. The faster you can reduce the number of threats, the better. In classic Kingdom Hearts fashion, the final fight of the game versus Xemnas is extremely lengthy, with multiple what the f phases. First stage Xemnas is simple enough to deal with, as he has an incredibly shallow move pool and long pauses between attacks. He will alternate between using a shock barrier that you can circumvent with proper timing to counterattack him from behind, or he will use a basic 2-hit combo. You might recognize these attacks from the Unknown Warrior in Kingdom Hearts 1, because yes, Xemnas is one and the same. When he curses you with his life-draining attack, he will say something along the lines of "Come closer," which prompts you to approach the tower and utilize the reaction command. Hitting this will break out of the life drain and deal a portion of damage to Xemnas. It is very important to wait on hitting the reaction command until it says finish to deal the most damage and opening him up for a follow-up combo. The timing on his 2-hit combo is very peculiar and comes out extremely fast, so guarding will prove to be a challenge. But if you can do so, then you have an opportunity to attack. His last attack is a long, drawn-out saber combo that you can guard spam your way through. Naturally, you'll want to counterattack when he's done. Some cutscenes later and intermittent phases will land us on the next iteration of Xemnas, which is the armored form. Armored Xemnas is battled twice, but we will focus on his much more challenging form aboard the Nobody Dragon. This guy is so lazy that he doesn't even bother to get out of his throne to battle you. Not that it would do him any good, as Sora repeatedly blows out his back. He does almost nothing to defend himself from your onslaught. He possesses all Organization 13 members' abilities and weapons, and makes the motions of rotating through them at regular intervals. Armored Xemnas hits for solid damage, but his constraint to his throne allows you a wide space to calculate your approach, as well as plot your escape to get off the heels. Occasionally, he will unleash a large gust to knock you back, but don't let this dissuade you from laying waste to his kneecaps. Find a still building to hit the reaction command to stun his draconic mount and allow you to land once more. Proceed to speedbag his scrote to your heart's content to the best soundtrack in the series and try to remain at above 50% HP, as his attacks are indeed slow, but again, are quite devastating should they connect. This will lead us to Final Xemnas.
Anger and hate are supreme.
Xemnas casts us to the skies, putting the ball in our court to spam reversal as much as possible to evade the constant bolts that come your way. After landing, Xemnas will teleport and launch out 2 exploding orbs to keep you at bay, as well as mixing it up with that signature monochrome lightning. Devastating his health bar some will bring a Shadow Clone Xemnas into the fray, where they team up their attack and start blasting you with lasers. Reflect will go a long way here. Xemnas will often cap off a laser assault by taking up the Palpatine Force Lightning pose and loosing a hail of lasers. The worst part of this ordeal comes when Xemnas throttles Sora and kicks Riku back. Here, you will have to take over as Riku and rescue Sora as his health drains away. Dying here as Riku counts as a death, and then you will have to restart the battle. I got through this by taking a few steps forward and then blasting the clone with Dark Aura repeatedly. Get close and hit the reaction command to set Sora free and resume the bout. Just as we were about to snag victory, we hit Xemnas' final attack. He will surround our protagonist with a dome of lasers, prompting us to survive the onslaught. To do this, you will need to hit both the reaction command Reflect as well as the menu command for Reflect to block for both Sora and Riku. Letting either one of them die here restarts the battle. Getting through this concludes the base game. Don't get downcast, there's some extra fun and balanced post-game content for the whole family, I promise. And now we complete our ascent to one-shot territory for pretty much the rest of this list. We call it that because every boss from here on can deplete your health faster than you can say. Barbossa has a shallow move pool, but makes up for it with unique, albeit annoying boss mechanics and high damage output. The light Snuffer Heartless darkens the arena, to which you will then need to locate the Heartless and attack to restore the light. Barbossa has access to the skeletal form changes that have been present in the pirate enemies thus far, meaning that you need to lead him into specific areas of the battlefield to have a shot at doing some damage. You really gotta fight dirty here and get your mud wrestle on. One combo and then get out. Use the topography of the battle arena to your advantage, as some of the angles can mess with Barbossa's ability to land a direct attack on you. Keep your health pool high and try to let your teammates draw aggro to get in some sneak attacks. Use whatever tricks you need, because an honorable fight will lead to some quick, super armored attacks that spell a speedy game over. This is a triple threat boss fight. To complete this, you need to knock out each of the children and then golf them into a box in quick succession. How's that for a sentence? If the little sit too long, they will regain their health. You have to be on your ball game and optimize your control of where you knock these kids around to. The best strategy I found was to use Magnet to draw them to where you want them to be. It also helps that they can't do much offensively when affected. It's pretty infuriating that these obnoxious taints deal severe amounts of damage. Was I underleveled? Not by much. Did I deserve this? Absolutely not. Double this fight. Much like Shock Block and Barrel, this is another triple threat boss fight. This is actually the first battle in the game that I completely hit the wall on. You need to defeat each of the 3 hyenas all the while protecting Pumbaa. The hyenas only really have one attack, which is a charge. I was level 22 at this encounter, meaning that any singular attack from any of the hyenas meant instant death. You see where this is going? To see victory, I had to do a perfect run. This fight. Guerrilla tactics was the only way that I could get through. Because I wasn't concerned with healing myself, I used Thunder as much as possible and waited for the perfect moment to go in. Naturally, I had to step in if Pumbaa started taking too much heat, but patience was the ultimate key. Even after doing this, I didn't feel good about myself. I felt like I had to do the walk of shame, or should I say, crawl of shame after the punishment that was administered to my orifices. Number 9, The Experiment. This amalgamation of discarded sex toys is one of my most dreaded story bosses. The Experiment is found on your second visit to Halloween Town and is the creature responsible for stealing Santa's sugar, if you know what I'm saying. It randomly blows out your back with insanely high damage output and couples this with an incredibly sporadic pattern of attacks. Baiting him into a confrontation outside of the workshop, it will open up the fight with a lightning-fast haymaker that will banish you to the Shadow Realm if you're not about your wits. After sustaining enough damage, it will break into various parts. You're going to want to target either the head for maximum damage, or the torso to trigger a reaction command. It might remind you of the guard armor from games previous, as it functions the same way in how it attacks with its body parts separated in later stages. Stay topped off on health by packing as many potions to this fight as possible, as all of its attacks can be fatal. This fight is a bit wonky, but the threat of being one shot at any given time is all too real. Trust me on that one, Commissioner. This is one game of butthole roulette that you don't want to be a part of.
Dance, water, dance!
Is what you're going to dream about tonight after completing this fight. Going into this fight blind, Demyx will lay waste to players. His most challenging attacks come from his showstopper interaction and his failing to mash the reaction command during his showstopper results in severe damage and most times, death. I want to iterate again how difficult it is not having second chance and once more. When Demyx executes his keep to the beat assault, waves of water will erupt behind you and him, forcing the two of you together. At the final hit, time a block to allow for a punish. Do not flail around attempting to dodge, as I learned that the hard way you will fail 9 out of 10 times. Otherwise, keep the music notes down and out by using the reaction command or good old fire spells, because believe it or not, the music notes can one-shot you. I didn't know that! He has a few other basic attacks and some bubble blowing to boot, but these are inconsequential next to the other attacks thus mentioned. You will only have enough time for a single combo before he retaliates with Raging Waters. Don't feel bad if you die to this boss. I have completed Kingdom Hearts 2 a handful of times and Demyx always gives me issues. Stay strong and be patient. You are not alone in your suffering. I promise you that, my friends. One of my least favorite bosses in the game, if not my absolute least. The Grim Reaper battle has a horrible minigame associated with it. The whole thing centers on controlling all of the medallions and keeping them inside the chest. The Grim Reaper will start by ingesting a hearty amount of medallions, which will necessitate you to cast magic on to knock out of him. Pro tip, you're going to want to equip your draw abilities to make grabbing the medallions easier. After nabbing the loot, you will then have to return them to the chest. Once they are all returned, the boss becomes vulnerable. Go in for a combo and then back off after landing the finisher, as the boss will use his revenge value to make space before teleporting away. Chase after him and knock him around while you can, because he will ultimately return to the chest and suck up more medallions and revert to the cursed form. In said cursed form, the Grim Reaper utilizes 2 attacks. The first will consist of him throwing his floating skulls. This attack has a large wind-up but moderate missile speed. As long as you're moving, you shouldn't be in danger of getting hit. His second, and most annoying move by far, is his AoE spin attack. He will cast this move on the fly and slowly approach you while he does so. Spacing from the boss in this cursed state is essential, as he is easily able to two-shot you. The most reliable way to extract medallions is to wait for him to start vacuuming up the chest. Granted, he will only do this when there is a sizable amount of medallions in said chest to begin with. You will need to run up to him while avoiding the rotating flames and hit that triangle button to knock him into the mesosphere and reclaim a large portion of medallions. When entering the final phase of the fight, the Grim Reaper will hover over the chest and transform into 3 giant skulls that slam sporadically around the arena. It's quite difficult to dodge all of the shockwaves, but luckily this is one of the few attacks that doesn't spell instant death. Patience is absolutely essential for this fight. This is a tedious minigame that you need to play in order to damage the spooky deuce of a douche. For reference, my successful run where I claimed victory took about 6 minutes. Far harder than he needed to be. Expect ultimate relief when you see that flash of victory. Halloween Town is just full of bullshit bosses. Oogie Boogie ranks so high on this list because of how unforgiving everything is. Everything kills you in 2 hits or less, and you have to go about the boss fight in typical minigame bullshit fashion. The fight takes place in a conveyor belt with Oogie on a glass platform above. The conveyor belts continuously roll you back towards a wall of spikes, and you need to golf the presents onto Oogie's platform to overweigh it and knock him down. You will then be allowed to deal a very set amount of damage before he invincibility frame frolics back to a new platform. Along the conveyor belt, you'll be attacked by various tools, with the most dangerous being the punching glove. It's a one-shot. Another danger will be trick boxes that contain Heartless in them. This Heartless can blast your rim in a moment's notice. As the fight progresses, Oogie Boogie will move his platform to different conveyor belts, prompting you to follow suit. The only consistent advice I have to offer is don't camp at the front of the conveyor belt, as the punching glove begins there and will crush your tiny little ring. Good luck. I hate this boss and everything associated with him. My initial attempts at Scar had me at level 22, but after getting one shot by every single one of his attacks, I decided to go into the Hyperbolic Time Chamber until I was at the world recommended level of 28, only to come back and get one shot some more. The worst part about the Pride Lands is that Lion Sora can't use guard or dodge roll, so you have to rely solely on running. I'm going to put this out there. Any gimmick that takes away your ability to dodge roll or block is a load of ass pudding, and I will die on that hill. The horror of this is only further emphasized when you discover that all of Scar's attacks are dashes and lunges. For the majority of this world, you are likely to have utilized the aerial combo that involves mashing the square button to get off the most DPS. But as fate would have it, Scar has aerial recovery and will never be privy to an aerial assault. For this fight, you're going to want to get in a single combo and then retreat when he goes for his revenge value. Be extremely careful about going in because Scar gets super armor at the most random of times, which he will take full advantage of to send you to the continue screen. Phase 1 comprises of 2 simple leaping attacks, with Phase 2 seeing an elemental upgrade. Naturally, any one of these augments will make him immune to that elemental damage. For example, Electric Scar is immune to thunder spells. I found the best time to go in on Scar was after interrupting him mid-leap with an effective spell and then following up with a combo. Again, only go in for a single combo as he can retaliate incredibly fast. When he gets low enough, he will do his ultimate attack, which sees him take on a bright glow and conjures several glowing orbs. Scar will race across the arena trying to charge you down, and this attack is the one you need to be most wary of. Sprint in a circle, and right as he's about to get you, jump. Maybe 2/3 of the time, you can escape without a scratch. You need an aspect of luck to do this perfectly and consistently. One-shot lunges, aerial recoveries, copious super armor, immunity to your range attacks, no dodge rolls, no blocks, and the sheer frequency of said super armored lunging one-shotting attacks. It's like dragging your tittles across broken glass. Everything about this fight is utterly ruthless and straight up not fun, and it doesn't help that it comes right after your fight versus the 3 hyenas. The fight that nobody is ever prepared for, this battle was added in the final mix version of the game and is an incredibly unexpected and crushingly difficult challenge. Taking a deeper look into yourself, Sora wrestles with identity crisis, a struggle that we can all relate to, am I right? Roxas starts the fight off with a one-shot AoE attack that requires you to block. This is followed by a dual-wielded combination attack that you can block your way through. Each time that you successfully block Roxas' AoE sweep or combination attack, you can do a full rotation of your own before triggering his revenge value. A nice dodge roll should suffice in getting around his retaliation. After progressing enough, Roxas will power up and add lasers to his attacks that scatter across the battlefield. This makes guarding a bit more difficult, but more on your radar should be the addition of a few new attacks. Roxas has a new combo attack in the form of flying up to you and throwing his keyblades. This attack is quite difficult to evade because of how fast it comes out, and it nearly killed me every single time that he used it. Next, we have quite the interesting interaction to discuss. At any point in the bout, you might get a slow motion cinematic of Roxas and Sora charging each other down. Carefully watch the command menu and select the end when it appears. You need to be fast as you will have only a moment to make the selection. Obviously, if you fail, you'll be met with severe punishment, but if you are successful, you will steal Roxas' weapons and brutalize the sphincters. He will eventually reclaim his keyblades after some time, so make use of them while you can. Full disclosure, he didn't use this attack on me once in the story battle, so I had to record some footage from me challenging his data fight encounter, which is what you're seeing now. Okay, back to the main game. Roxas' ultimate attack will see him taking center stage and charging out before releasing a slew of homing bolts of light. For this, you will want to run a perimeter on the far outside of the arena and dodge roll right as the bolts reach you. Getting hit by one bolt means getting hit by every subsequent bolt. The same can be said about his basic combos. And, do I even need to say it, not having the second chance once more combination of abilities can spell death at any point, which is really the biggest challenge of this whole game. Unless you've done some solid leveling before confronting the final world, you're likely in the mid to low 40s as far as levels go, which roughly translates to you getting your wig split. If you do not have the abilities yet, I highly recommend leveling up just a little bit until you unlock at least one of them, otherwise you need to make an exceptional, nigh flawless run against Roxas to see victory. And as we get to the top 3, I want to give an honorable mention to the second Space Paranoid's Light Cycle minigame. Making this a mandatory section of the game to precede the main story should be a felony charge, especially because you die in 2 hits on critical mode and having to repeat the same cutscenes over and over again is mind-numbing. I hope whoever came up with this gets a brain freeze the next time they try to enjoy ice cream. Oh lordy, my mind and body have dreaded this fight since I started my critical mode playthrough. Zaldin is pain incarnate, and whoever came up with this boss design likely got a promotion and was made to start immediate work on designing the secret boss too. Zaldin has quite the repertoire of attacks, and they are all quite fast and deal extreme damage. He begins by casting Aeroga on himself, meaning that any attempts at attacking him will prove futile. When Zaldin attacks, you will need to either block or dodge roll and press triangle to hit the learn reaction command. You will steal his attack much in the fashion of the Dragoon nobodies. You will then be able to exercise the attack on Zaldin for modest damage and then chain into a full combo. The best time for you to get your offensive opportunity is when he does repeated Dragoon dives. Keep moving, and after each dive you should be spamming triangle to stack up your jump commands. When he finishes this, it will be your turn to go in for the big damage. At around the halfway mark, he will perform his ultimate attack. He will unleash a large sweeping combo with the spears that you can guard against or run from. A big hint, running away is quite difficult. I don't recommend it. This culminates into the finale of his ultimate, the Dragoon Cannon. Zaldin will combine his spears to form a nobody dragon of sorts that he rides upon, before performing a sweeping arrow blast across the battlefield. This attack is unblockable, and unless I was doing something incredibly wrong, undodge rollable. Fun fact, at the time of recording the video footage, I really had no advice for how to avoid his cannon. So I tried to look something up to share with you guys because I feel that having a counterplay to this attack is absolutely essential. You want to know what the guide said? It recommended just topping off on health and then taking the hit straight to the face. You want to see how that panned out? Let me give you some real advice. I discovered a workaround for this attack when recording Zaldin's data fight. Hashtag data fight video confirmed. What you need to do is flush yourself against one side of the bridge and wait. The dragon will begin sweeping towards the side of the bridge that you are on, and as it starts the sweep, you need to make a beeline for the corner of the opposite side. Obviously in the data fight, I simply glide over without much of a worry, so I am not 100% certain how fast one can make it on foot. But if you do make it in time, the air cannon will sweep and stop just short of the corner that you are hiding in. In his final phase, he will implement his deadliest attack. Engulfed in Aeroga, Zaldin will rapidly dash towards you, and if he catches you... To this day, I still don't have a perfected way to get around this. You might think that having Mickey available for this fight would be a saving grace, but it does literally nothing. Sora has no business calling the poor king into this to also get his cheeks jousted in. Just pray that Zaldin doesn't hit you and you can steal a jump command to get through that last little bit of health. A big welcome back to one of the most legendary characters in gaming. If Sephiroth from Kingdom Hearts 1 was any indication of power, then it's a no-brainer that we find him at the penultimate spot on our list. Step 1. Hit triangle. Sephiroth has an instant kill attack that he opens the fight with and requires the appropriate reaction. This EI strike is cast throughout the entire battle, so keep that reaction command at the ready. Phase 1 starts with some basic slash attacks with Sephiroth exhibiting minimal maneuverability. You will typically only have enough time to get a single combo in before he armors up to go for his own attacks. Don't spend too much time in the air either, as he loves to ambush with teleport slashes, and you might have noticed by now that it's a bit difficult to guard while skybound. Worse still is when he uses his EI strike just before you hit the ground, not giving you the option to even use the reaction command, and therefore resulting in death. When phase 2 happens, Sephiroth moves much faster and adds some new attacks. The obvious one will be the dark spheres that are summoned. These will hover around you before closing in. Reflect is the obvious choice here to keep these at bay. The spheres are not too dangerous in themselves, but rather they provide cover for Sephi to implement his other weapons of choice. And that leads us to the firewall. He will activate a gravity well that pulls you in as pillars of flame emerge from the floor to toast your scrot to a golden brown. And lastly, the most important attack of all. You know it, you love it, you still wish it wasn't a thing. It works exactly as it did in Kingdom Hearts 1, except Sephiroth will fly into the air as he casts it while chanting the attack's namesake. You need to jump as high as you can at him and mash attacks to interrupt him. Failing to do so will see dire consequences as your HP is reduced to 1 and your MP is zeroed out. If you are hit by this, don't even think about using potions until after you have guarded his inevitable follow-up attack. At low health, we enter the final phase of the bout, where Sephiroth will enter his empowered state and attack more often and more quickly. He will also hit you with his ultimate technique, which is a massive meteor shower. This is an impressive display, but the damage is surprisingly lacking. Dodge as best as you can, but it should be quite alright if you get clipped by a few of them. If you need a reference, I was level 61 when I managed to beat him, and I am by no means a fantastic Kingdom Hearts player. So have an open mind that even with all of these tips, you're going to die quite the numerous amount of times just as I have. But it's all part of the growth process. Now that's enough, the fluffers have had their limelight, it's time for the main attraction. With everything said thus far, it should make you shudder at the fact that Sephiroth is a runner-up, because the #1 spot is that much more terrifying. Unsurprising and indisputable, the Lingering Will is the most difficult boss in the entire game. Every attack zeroes out your health bar, and nothing but trial, error, and obsessive, borderline psychotic memorization are the only tools that will lend you even a glimmer of victory. Most of your deaths will occur in the final moments of the fight, or within the first few seconds. Important to state now is that the Big L Dub is only vulnerable for an attack after you've successfully evaded or defended against his own offensive move. And the window to begin your assault is quite short, meaning that you need to be in a close vicinity before you can think about chunking down his health bar. And speaking of health, he has plenty of it. Running away doesn't help much, as he is much faster than you, and in his second phase, all of his attacks begin with a teleportation. Needless to say, Donald and Goofy will be death fodder from start to finish. Actually, now that I'm doing this video, I think that summoning Stitch would be a better use for your party members. Kinda crappy that this option is only just now popping up in my head. Anyways, let's talk about the fight. First of all, I'm going to make some assumptions. You are level 99, fully kitted out with endgame gear, and have maxed out drive skills. And by that I mean level 3 glide, level 3 dodge roll, and so forth. The ultimate weapon is a nice bonus, but I use the decisive pumpkin keyblade personally. Found after reaching the end game, a mysterious dark portal will open up in Disney Castle. Interacting with it will send you into a cinematic cutscene and begin your ultimate showdown. As the fight begins, the camera will cut back and forth between Sora and the Lingering Will. As it pans across Lingering Will for the final time, you'll have an indication of what he's going to be opening up with. If he is winding up an attack in the final frame, then you need to immediately guard, as he's going to use his Rising Sun dash attacks. These come in bursts of 3, but he can do anywhere from 1 to 3 sets of this attack. If you see him standing there unfazed, then he's going to charge you with a fisting combo to knock you down to 1 health, or he's going to power bomb your location to curse you. This curse comes in 2 forms but have a similar effect. Getting hit by the attack will lock you out of either your melee command or your magic command. If your melee command is locked, then you need to hit Lingering Will with enough magic attacks to break the curse, indicated by the smaller health bar now present on screen. If your magic gets locked, then you need to deal enough melee damage instead. If he opens with this, you need to either dodge roll or even quick run at the right moment to escape the imprisonment. Furthermore, if you see him running after you, not dashing, then he is trying to punch you or execute the curse technique, so keep your evasive tactics on lock. If you see him toss his Keyblade in the opening cutscene and spin, then he is transforming his weapon into the Keyblade cannon. After a short delay, a massive homing blast will come out at you. The blast lingers for a long time and has incredible tracking to it. You're best off by blocking to return this to sender. Doing so correctly will knock the Lingering Will skybound, opening up for a clean attack. If you mistime this, then roll into the blast to detonate it without taking damage. Failing to do either of these will result in you getting put to 1 HP. The next attack you can open up with is the Speeder Bike, which has a similar animation to the Keyblade Cannon. You heard me correctly, a Speeder Bike. The big man's Keyblade will transform into a Star Wars-esque vehicle before he shreds some serious gnar and begins making passes at running you down. You can dodge this attack by either blocking at the right moment or rolling into the bike. I found rolling to be more beneficial as it places you next to the boss after he dismounts, setting up for a perfect counterattack. Wanna know the crazy thing? Everything that's been said about the boss thus far is just for dealing with the first frame of the battle. As far as attacking the Lingering Will goes, your cue to know when you can go in is when he's landing to touch the ground after completing a Rising Sun or dismounting from his bike. If he does not make a descent, you need to anticipate that he's going in for another round of Rising Suns or possibly hopping back on the bike. When inflicting damage, you can get in a little more than 1 combo's worth of hits, but dealing too much damage will trigger his revenge value, in which his Keyblade converts into a whip that covers a large sphere centered on himself. If you are planted and facing him, you can block this attack by guarding 3 times consecutively, but this comes out incredibly fast, so good luck with that. An important note: when you knock out 5 health bars, the boss will automatically do his whip counter, so pay attention so that you don't get caught off guard. Most of the first phase consists of dealing with variations of his opening moves, but there's 2 more attacks to discuss. Occasionally, the boss will summon small lasers that follow you around for a short time. You can guard against these or cast Reflect until they go away. Nothing too major. The bigger problem, and I would say actually the biggest problem of the entire fight, is the escape fall trap. Just like that time when 2 girls found a lone cup, things are about to get shitty. Remember the shock release attack from the Unknown Warrior in Kingdom Hearts 1? Yeah, it's that. Lingering Will teleports near you sporting a massive bow and fires off an arrow that imprisons Sora, locking your commands as they roulette between escape and fall. Hitting fall will instantly kill you, with escape alleviating you and restoring your commands. But at the same time that this is going on, your health is rapidly draining and the boss is trying to slap you around. The best way I found to deal with this is to simply hover over one of the commands and just pray the escape pops into your selected slot. Don't try chasing the command. Actually, the best way to deal with this is to just not get hit at all. You need to listen for the teleportation sound and hit dodge roll. Trust me when I say that this is much easier said than done. When the Lingering Will gets to lower health, you will activate Phase 2. In addition to all of his attacks now opening up with teleportation, he unlocks his ultimate technique. The skies will darken and he will charge up before flying up to you and executing a massive 3-course meal of a combo. He will execute a Keyblade combo, then power up with spinning cogwheels to dish out further damage, and then finish things off with a slew of teleporting charges, slam, and a spinning slash. I have been hit by this attack so many times, and it was only when I was limping on life support that I had a breakthrough on countering it, and here are my findings. When he winds up his ultimate, you're going to want to be semi-close to the boss so that he flies up to you, because if you are too far away, he will teleport next to you and then you will have little chance of fending off the attack. Then you're going to guard 3 times in succession. Afterwards, he'll begin the next sequence of attacks where you need to turn around and fly away as fast as possible. Turn off your lock-on to minimize interference from the camera angle. Fly to a spot where you can get your back against a wall or cliff edge because for his last assault, he will teleport to you and you do not want him to teleport behind you. You will then have the choice of either spamming block or dodge roll with perfection. After blocking his electric spinning slash, he is open to attack. Bad news for you is that you're going to have to do this multiple times, as he reacts so fast in this phase that he is hardly ever open for attacks outside of completing his ultimate. You wanna know something crazy? It's the number of times I died to Lingering Will. Wanna take a guess? Was it 60? Was it 100? No, something even wilder. 9. That's right. 9 deaths. It took me only 10 attempts to beat the hardest boss of Kingdom Hearts 2 for the first time, and it was a massive attribution to how lucky I got. On the attempt in which I beat him, he performed the Rising Sun attack for about 90% of the battle. No escape fall trap and no curses. I also managed to get a clutch Donald heal in the final phase, resulting in a W for your boy here. I tried quite a number of times after the fact to see how consistent I could get at beating him, as well as generally gathering more data on him to give you all a more complete guide, but I just got more of this. Who would have thought? And that'll bring us to the end of our video. The Harmless Henchman Award for Least Threatening Boss goes to Volcanic and Blizzard Lords. They are quite easy to bully around and just about any player should ace them. The Lethal Adversary Award for the Deadliest Boss goes to Scar, giving me a total of 21 deaths. This is closely followed by Zaldin and Sephiroth, and that should go to show you how bullshit things can be when you take away dodge roll and guard and have a boss that deals in mostly one-shots. Thank you all so much for watching. If you don't agree with some of these picks, let me know in the comments, but until then, take care, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll be seeing you soon for the next one. Bye bye!